Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Sunday Scan. We're happy to have Judah back on for the first time in a while. We have a bullish market. We have a ton of breakouts, ton of setups to go over. So Judah, welcome back to Sunday Scan. How you doing?
Yep, I'm good. Thanks for having me back on. It has been a while.
Yeah, definitely. And this is like, the perfect timing. We had bullish comments by Powell on Friday, and the market has just had, it was having some indecision, had a recent little bit of a correction, a couple percent, and now it's kind of back off to the races. So I'm sure you have a ton of names to go over. But what has really been your read on the market recently, the cycle, and where do you think we're at?
Yes, I mean ever since the April lows and the gap up over the 10 and 20 moving average, we've basically just been in a steady uptrend. We barely lived below, the 20-day for more than a day or two. And I mean, there's no reason to fight this. We had a decent pullback here, about 22%. We had some great volume on this. This is a wild candle that I'm sure none of us has really ever seen before. And then we just, put in a little higher low. We gap up over the moving averages at the same time. We had things like Palantir gapping up out of their base. We had GEV in a base that was starting to push out. They also had earnings. Hood took a little bit longer after putting in this little base, but gapped up, put in a little base, and then gapped higher and kept going. So, I mean, there was really no reason to think that this is bearish or to go into negative mindset every time it looked like it may roll over. It just supported on the 20. We could see it almost three times. This probably got everybody worried, and then it picked right back up, rolled back over, and then we had a wild save on Friday from the comments and Jackson Hole. You know uh, Another area we could see this is in the small caps. If we zoom out, small caps have really just gone nowhere since 2022. So 2-3 years now, we're just been in this base. And I mean, huge day on Friday, great volume, decent pivot out of this. And I mean, there's really no reason that this can't continue higher, testing prior levels, and at some point maybe just gets back to the highs back there. But I mean, everything has been looking good. I have a lot to go over, and yeah, whenever you're ready, I could go through that.
Yeah, definitely. So one thing that I want to bring up just before we get into that is I'm going to pull up the 2-year yield chart, and I've talked about this before, but just the correlation between the 2-year yield. Let me put this up, and basically small caps. So if we see, let me get a better view here. So there's a big inverse correlation between the 2-year yield, and that basically prices in the Fed activity and IWM. So whenever you see either big spikes in the 2-year yield, you'll tend to see big, drops in IWM. But like you saw here, when you have big drops in yields, you usually have a big spike in IWM. So it's a very, very, close correlation that I watch all the time. So you can just see this big move down here and that big move up in IWM. So that's just a great barometer to keep on, whether you're long or short, just paying attention to those rates. I think that that's a big clue and a big key in this market. So back over to you, Judah, but I just want to touch on that really quick.
Yep. So I'm going to jump into some. This is just a little review on some stocks that have moved up the past week, and what I'll be looking for over there is maybe delayed reaction. These are pretty much a little, on the not ready extended side, and then I'll go over my watch list and a few other sectors. So jumping into it, no specific order, just sorted by the percent change from Friday. So we had open, huge mover back in July. Eric Jackson, tweeted about it. He had some wild, unrealistic sounding price targets, which have got this going. Pulled back, gave a little, undercut of the prior low. We had this base, and then we had this push out of the base. Then we get this, 140% move. We get this 2-day pullback on decreasing volume, and then we get a continuation over those highs. So this, is one that a lot of people are fighting. I mean, the volume is ridiculous. The dollar volume at this point is more than one person can have an effect on. So it doesn't matter what he says anymore, in my opinion. This is just, traders buying trends because, it was on watch this day here for me. We had it on this day as well. And, it's a combination of traders looking for a continuation. And then on the other side, shorts that, don't think that it's worth this value. They think it's gone too much, and they're on the other side. So it's just volume and traders, just trader versus trader, in my opinion. Whatever he says may have a short-term pop, but at the end of the day, none of that matters, in my opinion. It's all price action, and that's the important thing to focus on. RKT had earnings, gapped up this day here, had a nice trend, pulled back as the market was pulling back, but wicked right off the 20. And now we get a powerful day here. If we go into the weekly chart, we could just see this base that it's forming, and it looks like it's going to retest those prior highs of 21. So if it offers an opportunity there in the coming days, then that would be of interest. We have BE, had the Oracle gap up, a little bit of a continuation earnings. And just this was a little bit of a delayed reaction to the earnings day, and it just kept going from there, whipped off the 20 or near the 20, barely undercut the 10-day. And this is something else that I want to keep an eye out for some sort of opportunity there. SoFi, pretty much back near the 25. I believe that's, big key level even from 2021, and just one that I want to keep an eye out for in the coming days if it could get tight. Intel, one that SoftBank had a $2 billion investment, and the Trump administration taking a 10% stake. This was another one that we had on Watch Friday. We had that big move, pullback on decreasing volume 2-day into the moving average, and then we just get that gap up on Friday. So that's another option. This has been going, sideways for a while here since the gap down. So maybe we decide to pull through that, and I'm going to use these levels as a key to determine where it may stall out. VSAT had a very nice move over here. Pretty much just consolidated under the 10 and 20, reclaimed, pushed through, had earnings, and just continued. And now it's kind of just building up here. So I want to keep this on watch for potential continuation as well. TEM earnings, delayed reaction, pushed it higher. This undercut with the market pulling back over Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and pretty much offered a great opportunity to get in at 74 over that prior highs as it soaked that moving average. So that has been a $10 move or so, and this is something that could potentially build out and maybe retest those prior IPO highs. Roku is just one that's putting in a base and moved higher on Friday out of a pivot, one that I'm keeping an eye out for if it could consolidate a bit longer. We have Tilray and MSOS in the cannabis sector. This is another one that I'm keeping an eye out for if it continues to just consolidate a little more. Maybe we push back through and we could see these clear levels on MSOS looking left. CRDO was one that had an earnings gap, pulled back into the 10, just continued trending higher, and we're going to see if we could build something out over here. Hood, market leader, liquid, doing a lot of things now with banking and crypto and trading. So just another one that's just been supporting on the 50, and even the 20 and 10 are getting close. So anything that tightens up over there, we could look for something. NVDA has earnings this week. Just one that's a little choppy up here along with a lot of other names, but I'm looking for some sort of tightness and opportunity to get in if it forms something. Lemonade had earnings on this day here. Potential delayed reaction, on this day, and now it's just consolidating up here. I want the 20 and potentially the 50 to just catch up. This was a great mover off of, the October, November earnings, and just kept going. So we could see how clean this moves. And again, if we go into a weekly here, we could see this, huge base, and now it's building over that. We could see that, this highs of 53.80s is that support of 53.20. So it's just basically trying to soak that prior high. So I could see this, continuing further. We got ALAB, one that, chopped up a lot of people within this range, finally gapped out, kept going. And now I just want to see this, again, tighten up since it's just a little choppy. 20, 50, they need to just continue holding or catch up. Reddit, great earnings winner this past month. Pretty much just been in this 9-month base since the earnings gap here. Had this nice little base, little type of handle over there. Premature gap and then the earnings gap, but really never went lower from there. Had a monster push off of open. It went from 182 to 190 within 5 seconds, and it just really hasn't looked back until now when the market was rolling over. So if we could now just consolidate a little bit, then I'd be interested in that. And then CELH, another earnings gap that is just moving up, that I want to see, the moving averages catch up. So that's just a little bit of review, things that need time, in my opinion, but things that could be really good. And then other names, because of how strong the market was on Friday. I mean, it just put in all these green candles that, there's no real tight charts that I see. So there maybe is one or two in this watch list that I have for the week. This is the watch list that I have for tomorrow, or again, Tuesday, Wednesday, if it offers a tight day. So RKLB, very nice mover on the daily, pretty much just pulled back and soaked on the 50-day. And now, we have this pretty much range. Again, I mean, big candle Friday. Don't really want to, take a day after, especially because technically, I mean, it's 3 green days, and I prefer a little bit of 1 or 2 days of red or consolidation, but didn't really push it out too far like some other names did. On Friday, we have a firm which has earnings this week, pretty much just coming up now near those prior highs from March. And I mean, if this could, have pretty good earnings and gap up over, I think it's a really huge base that is coming out of. So this is one for watch on earnings this week. We have Tesla, which has just been consolidating. We could see, I mean, just putting in 1, 2, 3, 4 higher lows, putting in this little flag after this move back up through, these moving averages. And now just looking for, potential pivot through 345, 354 continuation. EOSE is a smaller cap. That's just, just pretty much just basing for a little over 6 months, tightening up here. Nothing that I'm extremely excited about, but I'm trying to see, which names haven't, pushed out too far to give an opportunity until other names settle down. We got Embis, which was IPO that gapped up off of their earnings and pretty much just pulled back now into the 20. And I'm looking for, some sort of move up through that 70 level. If it could reclaim the 20-day, then I would be interested. AAOI was a pretty big, steady grinder on 818. Pretty much gave back the whole move and more, and now it's just creeping back up. What that move on 818 reminded me of was SYM. This is a robotics name that on this day here had a fantastic trend intraday, had another one here intraday, and that's what kept it on my radar for this day here to get involved after the pullback. I think like price action intraday is key for me to want to put on watch list. If it has that steady intraday trend, then it's one that's just being accumulated and could potentially end up higher. So if AAOI, maybe goes one inside day or just pushes back over 25, 26, then I would be interested in that, continuation. The trend's great. Had a pretty nice move back in, August to the New Year's, and that's just something that I'll keep an eye out on. PL is one that has been having news in between their earnings gap, pulled into the 20, pushed back, and now it's just consolidating on the 50. I mean, all the moving averages are tight, and I'm looking for potential continuation through 680s, 7. Then we have, I'm going to jump to MP because USAR is in that same basket, but MP had a lot of news out, with the administration and Apple partnership. We had, gap here, barely offered an opportunity or entry until they had another gap. Consolidated a bit, potentially had an entry on the 1st of August, but I mean, for those, that are looking at extensions, this was pretty extended. So could have been missed, but I mean, there was a lot of momentum in this name, momentum that we've never really seen in a name like this, maybe back in 2020, but we had so many names move in 2020 that, I mean, I don't really care about 2020 that much, but MP now is just, putting in these tight days. I think that it could use maybe a little bit more time, but if it pushes up through those 69, 80, 70, then I think this could be the only opportunity to get back in since, maybe since these earnings gaps or these catalyst gaps, Apple, and then the administration. So 69, 80, 70 potential continuation there, and then USAR, which has been in a huge chop, does kind of trend cleanly when it does have that trend, but we have higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low, and another higher low. So at some point, I think this is gonna, if it does continue, I think at some point that will just break through, and who knows. RBLX is one that, I mean, has just been a clear leader since, the April lows, steady trend, barely even undercut the 20. And the 20 was just so close to the 10. It was just very clean trend. Probe caused the gap down on the 15th, and now we're just trying to soak that 50. This could really go either way. Either we roll over while the market continues higher and becomes a fantastic short, or, I mean, we just push back up through 120, we reclaim the moving averages, and head higher with the market if it does continue. UNH is not my typical, but this has just been, being down, and this is the best setup I think it's had since the incident in New York and the CEO. Pretty much just having this grind, we gapped up off, Burry, Buffett. There was just a lot of 13Fs out and stakes put in here, and I think this is really just the best opportunity we had. We have this, first leg up off the lows. We pull back a little bit inside a steady decreasing volume. Now I'm just looking for, continuation. I don't see why, we don't go back and test these gap down day highs and maybe even fill that gap. So that's what I'm looking out for. Then we have THAR, which I'm going to call on Chris once I'm done with it. He'll give his opinions, and then I'll just run through some sectors to keep an eye out for. I know this is tons to watch, but there's just, a lot going on, and I don't want to miss anything. So THAR had biotech news out on Wednesday. Big volume, pushed up through all those moving averages and just kept going. If we go into the hourly, we could pretty much see it a little clearer. We have this, 3-hour move. We just have these inside candles, decreasing volumes. And once we perk up through, those 240s, 250s, it just pretty much had another 130% move from there. And now we're just consolidating again. And if you go back to the daily, we could see this is one of the 2 DLV variations that I talk about. It's pretty much the 2 DLV is really anything that has, great volume, great trend, catalyst, a reason for the movement, pulls back on decreasing volume. Each day it gets lower and lower than the previous, has a steady pullback, preferably into the moving averages, and then continues higher. And then there's another 2 DLV variation is 1 day move, then we have another day move, and then we have inside days on decreasing volume. So pretty much just, I'm going to compare this to, because, it's biotech. I mean, drug is another example where it has that huge 1 day push. Then we have a 2-day inside candle on decreasing volume, and then it pretty much just gaps up and replicates that first leg. Other examples are, which Chris spoke about in the chat on Friday, CEP, where we have those huge moves, and then we have inside candles on decreasing volume. I mean, there's so many examples that we could put in. 2-day move, pretty much just lower volume for 2 days, inside bar, and that's the 2 DLV inside bars. When you have that huge initial push on the daily, and it's not a steady trend, it's not like a 50 or 100% mover. It's like a 200-300% mover, and then it has inside bars, decreasing volume, and then it has that another leg. So I'm just going to have Chris hop on here to cover his thoughts on THAR before I continue on with some powerful, strong sectors that have been showing themselves.
Yeah, definitely. And just a reminder to everyone that we are not financial advisors, and these are not buy or sell recommendations. Everything that we're talking about is for educational and informational purposes only. So great thoughts there all around, Judah. I mean, there's been a ton of names to really review. I'll pull up my chart on THAR. And before I pull up my chart, you were talking about the mineral space. And I think one other name that is worthy of watching is that UUUU. And that's kind of like a rare earths play / a mineral one. That had a nice reclaim after a couple days ago, maybe it was less than a week ago, there was news that a big producer of uranium in Kazakhstan was going to up production, and that caused all the uranium names to flush. But this is a uranium name and a rare earth name. So now that had a reclaim, that's a much cleaner setup, in my opinion, than when it was initially breaking out, because it really flushed out a lot of the weak hands. So that's one that I want to highlight as well.
Yep.
Yeah, and then so I'll pull up my chart and we'll go over THAR a little bit. So basically, like, Judah covered most of the main points with it. These setups where you basically have, what's the context going into it? You have some kind of a move or a catalyst, and you have a stock or a structure that's very, tightly held for the most part. So usually a lower float stock has a big move up and then a ton of volume. I think between the last couple of days, this had like almost 400 million volume. That's very, very significant. So even if you have, these crap companies that are, issuing warrants or dilution, everything like that, if they can hold up and churn through all that, and you basically, once they get through whatever the company was trying to sell, if they're still holding up, you get so many shorts in there over the course of days, and using that big volume to base that this is a very liquid name, they can get in and out. But as soon as you have the volume dry up and a couple of days of consolidation, and you have some shorts in there, it's exactly like those moves that we saw in CEP a while ago, right here. So kind of comparing this portion right here to this portion right here, where you have that big move up, couple days of consolidation, and then it just rips right through. And you saw the same thing with BMNR. Big move up initially, big volume, consolidates for a little bit, and then rips right through. So even though it's not in the same sector or anything like that, the commonalities are it can be very tightly held, very short crowded, huge volume, pulls back and then consolidates. And then once it gets above those highs, so I think the trigger point for here would probably be around that $6 mark. You have like intraday triggers, and then you have interday triggers. So I talked about this a little bit in chat on, I don't know, Wednesday or Thursday or something. But basically, when you have setups like this, you have two layers that are really, driving it for the most part. You have the intraday traders who are, in and out looking for smaller moves. And then you have more like the swing traders. So usually when you have names like this that are, they pull back a little bit, then they clear out, they trigger a little bit, they can get out some of the intraday traders, with a 50-cent move or a $1 move and clear out some of that. But they're not really going to clear out all the shorts that are swing trading this, who might have an average somewhere in the, fives or 550s or something like that, until it gets to a real pain point like that 6 mark. And I think if we get through that, then not only are the intraday shorts going to get blown out, but also the swing shorts can get blown out. And those can be the really big moves. Plus you have, new demand coming in as it's breaking out again. So that's just a really good name to have on watch. And Judah and I were joking before this that almost the only time that these setups really don't do well is usually when the company itself ruins it. So if they do, another offering, if they do something like that, that can kill the setup because it changes the supply demand dynamics. But if there's no other news or no other, negative news or dilution, then this is can be a really good setup. So I will go over a couple of names on watch for myself for the week ahead. So Google's been having some pretty good news recently. They had a deal with Meta. Now they had some news about Apple possibly using their Gemini AI stuff in, Siri applications. So basically, Google is still at a reasonable valuation for the most part, and it's having this positive catalyst. So I think that this could take center stage as one of the most in play Mag 7 names. BE, this has been on watch for a while. Like Judah said, they had a big catalyst with, I think, Oracle basically supplying power to their data centers. And they're an AI power play here, but they're not nuclear. And it's actually nice because there's a very limited sector for fuel cell stuff for this. And it can actually be a lot of advantages over the nuclear thing. So this is like a subsector of that AI power that's really taking the lead there. And I think that, this could be one of those, as long as the market holds up and the AI theme holds up, that, we could see it at 70, 100 over the next couple of months if things, continue for it. So that's on watch for continuation, and using these hard flushes and these dips as points to really, anchor in for a swing trade, and then having kind of a reasonable, risk level. And then you can either add to that on dips or, use that as a reasonable risk. So AMAT, another one, this is on watch for downside. We have NVDA earnings on Wednesday, which is going to be huge for the whole sector. And so this had bad earnings. maybe 2 weeks ago or something like that. And it's been, consolidating, flagging here. And I think if we have any kind of negative news, this could have another big leg down. So that's on watch. NVIDIA will be on watch. The main thing to watch for earnings, they're going to have good earnings. It's almost guaranteed. But the thing to watch with NVIDIA is the guidance, especially how it relates to China and some of those AI chip sales. So, is the market overall expanding? Are they able to tap into new markets, or is that constricting based on some government regulation? I think that will be the main driver for NVIDIA for the week ahead. eBay, slow burn. Again, reasonable valuations, good earnings, and then just consolidating. Much more of a slower mover, but this is one where when it starts to move, and if it gets some maybe bullish option flows, this is going to have another leg up, in my opinion. So this is Wayfair, furniture play. Trump was just talking about how they're going to take a deep look at furniture tariffs, because so many of these companies, they source things from Asia or China. And so sometimes 60 or 70% of their products are coming from China. And so if Trump throws on a 25% or 50% tariff on any foreign imports, that can really hurt some of these businesses. So I think we could see some continuation to the downside if we get a negative catalyst with the furniture tariff situation. And then KRE, IWM, these are two that do really well when rates are dropping. So, bond yields are dropping. The Fed's talking about cutting, or talking about, being a little bit more dovish. So those are always, leading sectors when that circumstance happens. And then we talked about how, the 2-year rates, as those flush, that's a big driver for those names. We already went over THAR, ETHA. So Ethereum, we had a nice mean reversion trade on this last week. And really captured a good chunk of this downside there, flushed to 4K, and then right back up again with the dovish tone of the Fed. Crypto is usually a leading sector from that. We've actually seen Bitcoin be a little bit weaker and Ethereum be a little bit stronger this part of the cycle. So that's something to take note of, because names like MSTR, I think they have more relative weakness compared to some of the Ethereum names. And those are the main ones that I really want to go over. So Judah, back to you. I know that you have some sectors that you want to review. Any comments on any of those names I brought up?
Yeah, I'm about to go over ETH in that crypto space now. So ETH, clear trend. We had a nice consolidation, couple month consolidation here, and put in this first leg, flagged, had a great breakout and trend, and now we just pulled back, had some inside bars, and the Jackson hole just sent this even further. We have ETHU, which is a 2x Ether, and then we have ETHA, which is another type of ETF for Ethereum. The name right behind that is BMNR, which had that massive move, almost a 2,000% move back in July. Pulled back, had this little bit of a, this wedge into the 50-day moving average. And then we just put in this, 125% move, pull back steadily into the 20. And now with ETH going further, this is perking back up. So this is another potential watch for continuation as it reclaims or attempts to reclaim the 10 moving average, especially if ETH wants to, continue this breakout, which it seems like it does. Then we have the miners, the AI infrastructure for crypto. We have the just treasury names, which, BMNR is probably the main treasury name that is of interest, because ETH is the clear leader. SPED and things like that. Any Bitcoin, Tron, XRP treasuries are of no interest. If I'm going to play a treasury name, it's probably going to be BMNR, given Ethereum and what's that doing. So the AI infrastructure data center names, you have IREN, which had an amazing rally back from the April lows. Little choppy here, didn't really provide much of a clean setup, but that's perking up higher and pretty much just retesting those July highs. CIFR, which I believe is another SoftBank investment here, and pretty much just perking back up over the 6th level. We got HUT, which is another one in that space, which is perking back up as well and holding up. We got Riot, which is not great, but it's performing much better than CLSK and Mara this time around. So we have Riot, we have HIVE, which is another one in the crypto sector. APLD, which had a CoreWeave collaboration back in June. We had an earnings gap, a nice delayed reaction, and now it's just creeping up back to the highs. We got WULF, which had a lot of catalyst out recently, and pretty much just gapped out of this very nice base and had a little bit of a continuation. If I show my notes on it, we have the this megawatt 10-year AI hosting agreement with Fluid Stack, pretty much Google with initial stake of 8%, and then took a ended up being 14% just a few days later. Now it's just starting to build out up here, but this is just a sector that's showing strength right now, and that could be continuation in the coming days and weeks, months. Solar is another one that has been performing really well, as everything else, especially the market was kind of just pulling back or stabilizing last week. We have SEDG, we got SHLS, Run, NXT, ARRY, and FSLR. These are just names that are getting good volume here. Solar is showing up now. They've been beaten down for a long time. I mean, it may be its time, but we want it to prove itself, build out a little more, show some good strength and consolidation. We want to see that trend back and break key levels, but solar should be another name, another sector on everyone's watch. We got China, which NEO and XPEV showing extreme strength in that sector. LI is the third name, which is lagging a bit. This is like of no interest really. But NEO, XPEV, we got TIGR, which is gapping out of this really nice base. We got BABA, which is perking out through now, and PDD earnings tomorrow, gapping up. I'm sure there's a bunch of other names. HSAI had earnings gap out of their base, and this is a China LiDAR name. Starting to pull back a little bit here, but the China sector is starting to show some good strength. And the final sector, which isn't so big, but something that I've noticed on my scans, is the drone space. So ONDS, pretty nice move since August. Put in this little not the best consolidation, but now it's just pushing up through those prior highs. This had a 325 offering, which pretty much just soaked right into that level. We had an offering. We had a lot of offerings back in December with the quantum names. AMTG had an offering, soaked it up, and just continued way higher. And then QUBT, I believe, or QBTS was another one which had an offering that just soaked it right back up and ended higher. So ONDS, one that has been trending well, had the offering, soaked it, and now it's attempting to head higher. We have UMAC, which had some pretty terrible earnings last week, but we know earnings don't matter that much with these small cap names, as we see with quantum and other sectors, space and whatnot. So UMAC is one that's just been basing out and trying to perk up through this pivot level, and RCAT is another one that's just basing out here. Terrible earnings last week as well, but just another sector I'm keeping an eye out for. But the crypto space and the solar sector is showing clear strength over there. China's right behind it, and then this drone space, which is a back burner watch list. But there's just so much going on with the market, been trending since April. There's been a lot of movers and a lot of potential, in my opinion. It's probably a lot more I could cover that I don't have right now, but I'm going to pass it back to Chris, see if he has any closing thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's, so many great names. And I think for people who are, they're watching this, they're seeing a ton of tickers, pop up. Really what it's about, it's doing a broad-based scan of what is in play, what is the environment that the market is in, and then just zoning in on what makes sense to you. So someone might like, a certain type of liquidity trap setup. Someone might like, a classic breakout. Someone might like sector trades or earnings plays or anything like that. So it's really about being exposed to a broad set of names and then just narrowing into what are the top 5 names or so that really make sense to you. And then as the market plays out, just leaning into the one that looks the absolute best, that you can control risk on, that has the most upside potential, and that has a good probability of working out. So for anyone overwhelmed with a ton of names going on, it's very, very helpful to just have broad exposure and then narrow in on what works for you. And I think that will be a huge help for the upcoming week, because when so many things are moving as they do in bull markets, You really have to pick your spots and not try to trade everything or jump around to everything, but just, really focus in on where your edge is in the market.
Yep.
Yeah.
Something else to talk about is, individual setups for me, working out better than, things that have been happening like in the market on the way up. We have these little bit of a pullback, a lot of doubt and a lot of reason to be on the sidelines in between this entire grind. There has been chop on individual names, but I think there has been some really, really good action, as we saw in BE, as we saw in MP, as we see in, something like VSAT, which was a little more subtle. I mean, OUST was another huge runner, since these catalysts back here. But I think it's just really important to just first focus on price action. For me, it's really individual names. If the setup is really good there, I'll still take it if the market is stalling out or pulling back a little bit. I think opinions initially come first. You need to form your opinions to create your watch list, to create your thoughts and ideas. Once you do that, comes price action, and then price action takes over as first place, and your opinions go back to number 3. So you have to, put in the effort, show up, track everything, track individual setups, form your opinions, enter in the trades that you want to after creating your watch list, and then moving your opinions back to the end of the list and focus again back on price action. If it stops you out, stop out. And that's just basically your backstop, your cushion is your stop losses. So it shouldn't really matter, especially if we're trending up. 10 and 20 are above each other. Price actions above the 10 and 20. It shouldn't really matter if the setup looks great. Even if there is a little chop, I think it's still worth attempting as long as your risk is in control. If you stop out, you stop out. But we could see plenty of names just held up very strong and just ended up higher. Reddit just grinded higher from their earnings. I mean, there was a lot of, there's just a lot of thoughts being thrown out there on, chop and the market not being so clean. But we went over plenty of clean examples. Even something like JLBY back here, when it, just pretty much just pulled back a little bit and pivoted through, broke those prior highs and just grinded way higher. AMPX was another one that just gapped up and just continued higher. We have QS in the battery space that, put in the gapped up, delayed reaction, potentially another delayed reaction. And I mean, nothing wrong with this 100% move. We had another, ENVX battery name that had this little flag, gapped up, continued. So if you're doing your scans and you're going over a lot of names, putting in the right filters to find these names, there has been good action all around. I mean, there's really no excuse. So that's just my thoughts. I think it's important to focus on price action, put your opinions aside once you form your watch list off your opinions, and just take it from there.
Definitely. And then we narrow down all this in real time in IU. So even though there's a lot of names on watch, we'll actually be talking through what we're watching, what we're trading in real time, which is a huge benefit of being in the room. So Judah, thank you for coming on Sunday Scan and sharing, all these great watches with us. And we'll see you in IU in the week ahead.
Yep. Thank you. Have a good one, Chris.
You too. Thank you everyone for watching. If you want to trade live alongside me and other members of the Investors Underground community, then check out investorsunderground.com to see if becoming a member is the right decision for you. They have some of the best technology and a lot of great members there, all looking to help other people improve their trading. And also check out Investors Underground content on YouTube and Twitter. Thank you.